in affiliation with Boss Rush Games. Please visit Boss Rush Games and follow them at the links below to read reviews, hear podcasts, and for all things video game related. Boss Rush Games. Play games. Be better. Previously, I profiled one of the Wii's most unique products in the first-person shooter, the Conduit. The game was an impressive display of just what the Wii was capable of, showcasing awesome graphics, fast-paced shooting, and an intriguing story to boot. While the title from High Voltage Software wasn't the most successful game, it garnered enough interest for a sequel less than 2 years later. On that note, let's check out Conduit 2. Now, I say Conduit 2 because for whatever reason the developers dropped the word "the" from the title. Maybe they thought it was just too wordy or whatever, but Conduit 2 doesn't sound any better in my opinion, but oh well. Conduit 2 picks up directly where the first game left off. The nefarious John Adams makes his escape from the US Capitol via one of the alien conduits, with protagonist Agent Michael Ford chasing after him. This portal transports them to an oil refinery operating somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle, which is currently under attack by a massive Leviathan. You couldn't come up with a more boring setup if you tried, right? Sarcasm aside, it's a great way to thrust the player right into the action. Within minutes of starting up the game, you'll be blasting away armed soldiers, fending off aliens, and questioning if you're really seeing this kind of graphical prowess on the Wii. Yeah, I know that by now the PS5 is out, and these graphics are really tame in comparison. But you have to remember, this is the Wii we're talking about here, the console that came with Wii Sports. Conduit 2 at times looks like it's trying to give the Xbox 360 a run for its money. Anyway, the game is largely the same as the first, but with a few welcome modifications, as well as some changes that left me scratching my head. First, the good stuff. The developers have simplified the ammunition system from the original. While you can still pick up weapons crafted by the aliens, the FBI-like Trust Society, and standard military, they all share the same type of ammo this go-around. All shotguns use shotgun ammo, all handguns use handgun ammo, you get the picture. There's no more keeping track of all three ammunition types. I preferred to stick with the standard weapons for the most part. Yeah, they're unoriginal, but they never have any problems of getting the job done. The classic health bar from the original has been replaced with the more modern regenerative health system, which refills when you're not taking damage. I think the health bar worked great for the most part in the first game, as the levels and controls seem more tailored for that classic strafing combat as opposed to cover shooting, but if you remember, one major gripe I had with that game was the health did not recover at checkpoints. More than once I reached a checkpoint with little health, and upon dying I resumed playing with the same minuscule amount of health left. This proved to be detrimental to the experience at times, so at least this system eliminates those problems. To complement the new focus on taking cover, players can now create makeshift cover by turning over tables, bookshelves, soda machines, and more. This is a cool idea, but it is used sparingly in the game. In the few areas that I found this to be useful, I felt that they were so conveniently placed that the player would almost have to utilize them. This feature just didn't feel organic, and rather than making me feel like I'm in a real world where I can do this, it had the reverse effect, and reminding me that I'm playing a video game. Players can also shoot off enemy armor to expose weak spots, creating an extra amount of challenge in some scenarios. Some slow-moving armored thugs are the most brutal enemies you'll face in the game, and in order to take them down you have to tear off this armor to do damage. It's a nice idea, but like with the cover feature, it's not implemented enough. Simply put, it feels like an excuse to give certain strong enemies a larger health bar. A sprint button has been added, something that was desperately needed in the first game. Now players can rush up on foes as they reload to deliver a fatal melee blow, or dash away to recoup behind distance cover. The sprint feature complements modern FPS games so well that I feel it should be a requirement at this point, so it's an excellent addition. The developers also listened to criticisms aimed towards the motion controls of the Wii and implemented a robust set of additional control schemes. Players can stick to the standard Wii Remote nunchuck combo or make use of the Wii Motion Plus for enhanced precision control. For gamers wanting a more traditional way to play, Conduit 2 also supports the Wii Classic Controller and Pro Controller, with the ability to fully customize the button layout, which is a huge welcome for anyone that just cannot deal with the motion controls. I can relate on that front to a degree. While I prefer the precision and fast pace the Wii remotes provide, my wrists often start to hurt after about half an hour of playing. First-person shooters require the player to point the remote at the screen at all times, thus it can really wear out your arm and wrist in a short amount of time. In addition, the very sensitive movements in this particular game gave me some mild motion sickness. I think it had something to do with the Motion Plus, as the smallest of movements made the camera tilt and sway. My hand isn't always completely steady, thus looking at the screen can sometimes feel like being on a boat. Pausing my session for a few minutes or switching to the Pro Controller helped alleviate this, but it became enough of an issue that I had to step away from playing, and that's never a good thing. Now, onto the more questionable changes. All of these relate to the game's presentation, more or less. For starters, new writers who had worked on the Borderlands and Saints Row franchises were brought on board to bring a dimension of character to the sci-fi plot. Without saying anything about the quality of the writing, this does create a noticeable tonal shift from the original. The first game seemed to take itself rather seriously, and as a player you really start to feel that this alien threat is indeed something that should be feared. In Conduit 2, these more somber discussions are interlaced with wisecracks and the juvenile humor that those other games are known so well for. It works in the over-the-top worlds of those games, but in Conduit 2 it's totally out of place. It doesn't help that Agent Ford's voice actor has been replaced with John St. John, also known as Duke Nukem. St. John does a wonderful job as Duke, don't get me wrong, it's an iconic video game role, but it doesn't belong in Conduit 2. The Michael Ford we saw in the previous game took his mission to save the world as a serious matter. In Conduit 2, he makes it a point to comment on how hot the sole female character is.
That's Andromeda? Damn, Andromeda is a stone-cold fox.
It's pretty sad. In fact, all of the previous games' cast has been replayed. Gone are the excellent talents of William Morgan Shepherd and Kevin Sorbo as well, thus there's no consistency between the two games. Any player coming directly from the first Conduit game is going to find the whole experience jarring right out of the gate. The added dash of humor, while providing much needed character to the game, makes Conduit 2 feel more of a parody rather than a true sci-fi experience. You can't take this seriously. Even the ending, which should leave a lasting impact, comes across as ridiculous and comical because of the tone of the rest of the game. It just doesn't work. While the graphics are indeed impressive, that's not to say that they're anywhere near what I'll call perfection. Screen tearing and frame rate drops were pretty consistent, especially in heavy firefights. If I happened to turn around swiftly, the game sometimes would tear so severely that there were distinguishable lines in the screen. It nearly tricked me into thinking I was playing some sort of split-screen couch co-op mode. Lip syncing is also pretty much non-existent. Yes, characters' mouths move, but they in no way attempt to match what's actually being spoken.
The next viable location I can send you to is in China. However, Atlantis' systems are malfunctioning badly from years of neglect. Honestly, you're lucky the Conduit held up for your return trip.
For a game of this production in the year 2011, mouths that just flap haphazardly is extremely distracting and really pulls me out of the cinematic experience. Metal Gear Solid on the PS1 did better, and those character models didn't even have mouths. I will say that the loading speeds are pretty phenomenal. After each death, I was quickly right back in the action after only a few seconds. It helps too that this game isn't nearly as hard as the original. Yeah, it can be tough in sections, but even playing it on what's considered the hard setting, I didn't have too many problems, only having to repeat an area once or twice before moving on. Checkpoints are also evenly spaced out and reliable, and I rarely felt that they forced me to replay unnecessary sections. On launch, multiplayer was a huge selling point for Conduit 2. It sported both online and split-screen competitive combat. Alas, the Wii servers have long since been deactivated, so you'll be forced to play locally with a friend for your Wii multiplayer kicks. I can see Conduit 2 providing the same kind of fun that GoldenEye had back in the day, but not the degree of complexity that more modern games like Call of Duty and Halo provide. Sadly, if you've never experienced the online multiplayer like I haven't, it's likely we never will. Conduit 2's soundtrack is composed by Ed Dullian. I searched and couldn't really find any information on this guy. The soundtrack itself also seems to be non-existent on the internet. That isn't too surprising considering the music in the game is entirely forgettable. It serves as background noise and nothing more. Had I not intentionally listened to some of the songs from recorded material, I couldn't tell you anything about it. Conduit 2 attempts to be a worthy rival to both Call of Duty and Halo at the same time. It fails on both fronts. While objectively I believe Conduit 2 to be a better game than the original, the tone and originality of the first game make it a stronger recommendation than the blander Conduit 2. The shift from intelligent sci-fi towards camp didn't do the game any favors, and the cringe-worthy personality of the new Agent Ford will convince you to actively forget playing this game, more so than the generic nature of its other parts. I'd only recommend this if you're a huge fan of the original, and even then, I feel like you'll be let down. Anyway, here's Wonderwall.